The call came while I was sitting in a hotel lobby, waiting for a client. My husband's name flashed on the screen. I expected encouragement, maybe a simple good luck. Instead, Daniel's voice was ice. "I'm divorcing you. I already sold our apartment. I'm moving in with my new girlfriend. Enjoy looking for a new place." And then he laughed. The pen slid from my fingers, clattering to the floor. People around me carried on as if nothing had happened, while my life collapsed in a single sentence. But I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I said, "Sounds good." My tone so steady even he went quiet, because Daniel thought he had blindsided me. But when I returned home days later, his smug smile quickly vanished. When he realized what I had done. The call came while I was sitting in the lobby of a Chicago hotel, waiting for a new client. It should have been an exciting morning. My portfolio was on the table, my notes neatly organized, my nerves steady. For once, I felt like life was finally balancing. Career, marriage, future. Then my phone buzzed. Daniel. My husband of 12 years. I smiled automatically. Maybe he wanted to wish me luck, or remind me to eat after the meeting. That was the kind of man I thought I'd married. But when I picked up, his voice was sharp. Cold. "I'm divorcing you," he said like he was ordering coffee. "I already sold our apartment. I'm moving in with my new girlfriend. Enjoy looking for a new place." And then he laughed. For a second I couldn't process it. My pen slipped from my fingers, clattering on the marble floor. The sound echoed, but no one looked up. Businessmen typed on laptops. Couples sipped lattes. The world moved on as if my entire life hadn't just been set on fire through a cell phone speaker. My throat tightened. My vision blurred. But I forced myself to breathe. I couldn't let him hear me break. So I swallowed the lump clawing up my throat, steadied my voice and said, "Sounds good." Silence. That wasn't the reaction he expected. For years, Daniel thrived on my emotions. My worry, my tears, my attempts to fix what he broke. But that day I gave him nothing. "Lucy," he said finally, his voice dipping. "Did you hear me?" "I did," I replied evenly. "Good luck." And I hung up. I don't remember much of the meeting that followed. I smiled, I spoke, I nodded, but inside I was hollow. Betrayal buzzed in my chest like static. Daniel wasn't just leaving. He had already erased me, sold our home, moved on with someone else. All without a single conversation. For the rest of the trip, I went through the motions, but my mind kept replaying his laugh. Cruel. Certain. The laugh of a man who thought he had won. When I finally returned home, suitcase still in hand, I found him waiting in the living room. Daniel leaned back on the couch like a king on his throne, his smug smile stretching ear to ear. "So," he said smoothly, "welcome back. Did you find a new place yet?" He expected me to cry, rage, beg. But instead, I set my suitcase down gently, walked to the coffee table, and placed a slim folder on it. His eyes flicked down, confusion wrinkling his smug grin. "What's this?" he asked. Smiled. Neutral. "Take a look." And the moment he opened that folder, the smile on his face disappeared. Because Daniel thought he had blindsided me. But what he didn't know was that I had been preparing for this day for a very long time. When Daniel's smile vanished in our living room, when his fingers trembled over the folder I'd laid on the table, it wasn't just anger that pulsed through me. It was heartbreak. Because before the betrayal, before the lies, there had been love. Or at least I thought there was. 12 years ago, Daniel wasn't the man sitting smugly across from me. He was the man who held my hand when my father passed away, who whispered promises on our wedding day about forever, who said we were a team no matter what. And I believed him. I was the one who worked double shifts when he wanted to start a business. I paid bills when his ideas failed, reassured him when he doubted himself, and cheered him on when he got his big break. When I got a promotion, I used the extra income to cover his debts. When my friends invited me out, I stayed home because Daniel said he needed me around. For 12 years I poured myself into us. And yet, somewhere along the way, I stopped being his partner and became his safety net. The signs were there. I see them clearly now, but back then, I brushed them off. The late nights at the office that stretched into dawn. The text messages he never let me see. The way his phone buzzed with unknown numbers. He always ignored. When I asked, he'd snap. Stop being paranoid. You think too much. I wanted to trust him, so I swallowed my doubts. I told myself he was stressed, that once things settled, we'd go back to how we used to be. But instead, things got worse. He stopped noticing me. My new haircut, the dresses I wore, the way I decorated our apartment. None of it mattered. He came home, ate, scrolled through his phone, and muttered goodnight like I was a stranger. The only time he seemed alive was when his sister dropped by, bragging about her vacations and mocking me for working too hard. Daniel laughed along with her. They both made me feel like the outsider in my own home. I remember one night, I stayed up late preparing a dinner for our anniversary. Candles, wine, everything. He came home 2 hours late, reeking of perfume that wasn't mine. He mumbled some excuse about business and fell asleep before dessert. That was the night I cried myself to sleep, staring at the ceiling, asking myself if this was marriage or a slow death. But I stayed. I told myself loyalty meant endurance. I told myself vows mattered more than doubts. Until that call in Chicago. When he laughed as he told me I was nothing. The heartbreak cut deeper because I realized. He hadn't just left me. He had erased me. He sold our apartment without my consent. He drained accounts we built together. He rewrote our story so he could start a new chapter with someone else. Without guilt, without hesitation. To him I was disposable. And that's what hurt the most. Not the betrayal itself, but the realization that for years, I had been fighting for a marriage he had already abandoned. As I stood in that living room, watching his smug grin falter as he flipped through the folder I had laid down, all those nights of sacrifice, all the tears, all the loneliness surged back like a flood. But mixed with the heartbreak was something else. A flicker of strength. 'Cause yes, he had broken me. Yes, I had wasted years loving a man who saw me as a stepping stone. But he had underestimated me. And he was about to learn that the woman he thought was powerless had been quietly preparing for this moment all along. When Daniel finally stormed out of the living room, leaving the folder on the table, I sat alone staring at it. Inside were the documents I'd collected quietly over the past year. Bank statements, loan papers, contracts he thought I never saw. At first, I hadn't planned to use them. I only started saving them because of a voice inside me whispering, something's wrong. Don't ignore it. Now I was grateful I had listened. But the folder was just the beginning. I needed to know everything. Where the money had gone, who this girlfriend was, and why Daniel thought he could erase me like I was nothing. So I started digging. The first place I looked was our joint account. Or what was left of it. Thousands had been drained in small, careful withdrawals. Always in amounts that wouldn't trigger alarms. And almost all of them matched weekends Daniel claimed to be working late. The destinations were odd. Transfers to accounts under strange business names. A company called Greenview Consulting. Another called Lux Holdings. I Googled them. Nothing. No websites. No employees listed. Just P.O. boxes. Shell companies. My pulse quickened. Next, I opened the email address he thought I didn't know he had. One he once logged into on my laptop and forgot to sign out. My hands shook as I scrolled through the inbox. There she was. Melanie. The girlfriend. The subject line said it all. Can't wait to move in together. Counting the days. Booked the tickets for Paris. Tickets. Click. Attached was an itinerary. Business class seats for 2. Departure date. Next month. But something made me pause. The booking confirmation wasn't in Melanie's name. It was in Daniel's and Vanessa's. My stomach dropped. Vanessa. His sister. The woman who had mocked me, belittled me, laughed at me for years. She wasn't just living with us temporarily. She was his partner. His secret. I felt sick, bile rising in my throat. My husband and his own sister. It explained everything. The way he defended her constantly. The way they shared looks when they thought I wasn't watching. The way she smirked as if she knew something I didn't. And it explained why the coffee table folder made him sweat. Because if the truth ever came out, it wasn't just adultery. It was scandal. I sat back in my chair, my mind spinning. 12 years of sacrifice. 12 years of holding the marriage together while he built a web of lies. And now the web stretched so wide it threatened to strangle me if I didn't act carefully. I could feel my hands trembling, but my heart was steady. 'Cause now I understood. Daniel hadn't just been greedy. He hadn't just been unfaithful. He had been reckless enough to think he could throw me away without consequence. And that gave me leverage. That night, when he came home smug again, I stayed quiet. I cooked dinner, smiled faintly, and listened as he bragged about his future. He thought I was broken. But while he talked, I slipped my phone under the table and recorded every word. His laughter about how I'd never survive without him. His smug jokes about Melanie, replacing me in every way. His careless comment about how he had handled the apartment sale under my nose. Evidence. I didn't interrupt. I didn't argue. 'Cause I knew better. I knew that a storm was coming. And this time, I wasn't the one about to get swept away. Later, alone in the bedroom, I opened my own small notebook. I wrote down dates, amounts, every detail. The bank transfers. The shell companies. The Paris tickets with Vanessa's name. And at the bottom of the page, I wrote in steady letters. He thinks I'm powerless. He's wrong. I thought I was prepared for anything after discovering Daniel's affair. But what I found next made my blood run cold. It started with the apartment. Home. The place I poured years of savings and sweat into. Daniel had bragged on the phone about selling it, laughing at how I'd enjoy looking for a new place. But something about his arrogance bothered me. I had never signed anything. I hadn't even been asked. Could he really sell our apartment without me? So the next morning I went down to the county records office. My hands trembled as I slid the papers across the counter, asking the clerk to look up the deed. He typed, scrolled, frowned. Then she looked up at me. "Ma'am, this apartment is still in your name. Solely in your name." My chest tightened. "What do you mean solely?" She turned the screen toward me. "You purchased it before marriage, correct? You never filed a transfer of ownership. Legally, your husband has no rights to sell it." For a moment I couldn't breathe. Daniel hadn't just betrayed me. He had lied outright. The sale he bragged about was fake. When I got home I dug deeper. The folder I had kept wasn't just filled with receipts. It held copies of contracts Daniel left lying around. Contracts he thought I didn't notice. I spread them across the dining table, scanning the fine print. And then I saw it. The sale contract for the apartment. My name forged at the bottom. My hands shook as I held the page, bile rising in my throat. He hadn't sold it legally. He had tried to. He had forged my signature. Fraud. The word rang in my ears. This wasn't just betrayal of love. It was a crime. And if I let him get away with it, I'd lose everything I had built. That night, Daniel came home humming, smug as ever. Vanessa trailed behind him, carrying new shopping bags. She smirked at me, tossing her hair like she already owned the place. I set the sale contract on the table. "What's this?" I asked softly. Daniel froze. "Where did you get that?" he snapped. "My dining table," I replied coldly. "The same place where I found your forged signature next to mine." His face drained of color. Vanessa looked between us, confusion flashing into panic. "You don't understand," he stammered. It's just paperwork. Nothing official." "Really?" I tilted my head. "Because the county clerk told me this apartment is mine. Only mine. Which means you lied." Again. For once, Daniel had no smile. No laughter. Just silence. I could have screamed. I could have thrown the papers in his face. But instead I stayed calm. I tucked the contract back into the folder, slid it under my arm and said, "Good night." Because I didn't need to fight in the open. I had proof. And proof was stronger than rage. The next day I met with Claire again. She nearly spit out her coffee when she saw the forged contract. "This isn't just divorce material," she said firmly. "This is criminal fraud. He could go to jail for this." Hearing it aloud made my skin prickle. Well, for Daniel. For the man who laughed as he told me I was disposable. Claire leaned closer. "Lucy, you have leverage. With this you can take back everything he stole. The accounts, the property, even damages." I swallowed hard. For the first time I felt power stirring inside me. Not just survival but the possibility of victory. That evening when I walked through the door, Daniel tried to play it cool. He poured himself a drink, forced a chuckle and said, "Rough day." I looked him dead in the eye. "Not for me." His hand froze halfway to his lips. 'Cause he knew. He could see it in my face. The balance had shifted. After Claire confirmed that Daniel's forged sale wasn't just betrayal but criminal fraud, I finally exhaled. For the first time since that phone call in Chicago, I didn't feel like the powerless wife abandoned for someone younger. I felt like someone with cards to play. The first step was protection. Claire urged me to open a new bank account in my name only. She walked me through moving my salary deposits, securing online logins, and freezing joint accounts so Daniel couldn't bleed them dry any further. When the bank asked why, I explained there had been fraudulent activity. Within hours, pending transfers Daniel had scheduled were flagged and halted. That night he stormed through the door, tie askew, face red. "Why are the accounts frozen?" he barked. I looked up from my tea, my expression calm. Maybe the bank noticed suspicious withdrawals. His jaw tightened. "You don't know what you're talking about." Smiled. "Don't I?" For the first time it was him squirming. The second step was evidence. Claire and I built a meticulous file. Bank statements, text messages, the forged contract, even the Paris itinerary with Vanessa's name. She suggested keeping both digital and physical copies in case Daniel tried to destroy anything. So I uploaded everything to secure cloud storage and placed another copy in a locked box at Claire's office. "Think of it like fire insurance," Claire said. "If he tries to burn you down, he burns himself instead." Meanwhile I played my role at home. I didn't fight. I didn't cry. I didn't give Daniel or Vanessa the satisfaction of seeing me break. Instead I cooked dinner, went to work, smiled politely. And every day I could see the paranoia growing in their eyes. Vanessa, once smug and bold, now whispered urgently to Daniel in corners, glancing over her shoulder whenever I entered the room. Daniel snapped more often, pacing the living room, muttering about timelines and plans. They thought they were the hunters. But now they felt hunted. One evening I set the trap. I casually mentioned over dinner, "Funny thing, I heard from the county clerk this week. They said something about forged signatures being criminal." The fork clattered from Daniel's hand. Vanessa nearly dropped her glass. "What clerk?" he demanded. I shrugged, sipping my water. "Oh, just routine paperwork. You know, the kind married couples are supposed to file together." Vanessa's face turned pale. She looked at Daniel as if begging him to fix it. But he couldn't. Not this time. That night, I heard them arguing in hushed tones behind their locked door. Words like caught, evidence, we need to leave. I smiled in the dark. Because running wouldn't save them. The third step was reclaiming peace. I started meeting friends again. Taking long walks. Cooking meals just for myself. Each small act of normalcy was a rebellion against the control Daniel thought he still had. Neighbors noticed the change. "Lucy, you look lighter," one said kindly. I laughed softly. Maybe I finally put something heavy down. Inside I thought, no. I didn't put it down. I passed it back to the ones who tried to bury me with it. Claire's lawyer contact prepared the next move. Filing for divorce on grounds of fraud and infidelity, with supporting evidence attached. "We'll freeze assets, request full property rights, and pursue damages," he explained. "He'll try to bluster, but legally, he's cornered." I nodded, my heart steady. For once, I wasn't dreading paperwork or courts. I was anticipating them. Because I had been underestimated too long. The final straw came when Daniel barged into the kitchen one evening, Vanessa trailing behind him like a shadow. "You can't win this," he spat. "You don't know the people I know. You don't know how this works." I stood slowly, looked him in the eye and said, "You're right. I don't know the people you know. But I know the law. And I know the truth." His face twisted with rage. Vanessa's hand gripped his arm, but she was shaking too. And I realized in that moment, they were afraid of me. The power I had thought was gone, stolen in a single cruel phone call, was back in my hands. I wasn't just surviving anymore. I was preparing for victory. The court date came faster than I expected. One morning, a courier handed Daniel a thick envelope. He ripped it open at the kitchen counter, and his face drained as he read the words. "Fraud. Forgery. Divorce proceedings," said Freeze. His hand shook. Vanessa leaned over his shoulder, her nails digging into his arm. She filed already," she whispered. I stood by the window, sipping my coffee, my voice steady. "Of course I did." For once, Daniel had no smug grin. Just silence. The weeks that followed turned our world upside down. But not for me. For Daniel. The bank confirmed my sole ownership of the apartment. His forged contract was added to the case file. Every suspicious transfer to his shell companies was traced and logged. Claire and her team pieced together a timeline that painted him not as a wronged husband, but as a calculating fraud. In court, his confidence cracked. "Your Honor," my lawyer said clearly, "Mr. Reed attempted to sell property he did not own, drained joint accounts for personal use, and conspired with his sister to conceal funds." Gasps rippled through the courtroom. Vanessa shrank in her seat, her designer purse clutched like a shield. Daniel tried to interrupt, his voice rising. "That's not true, she's lying, she's..." But the judge cut him off. "Mr. Reed, the evidence is overwhelming. Sit down." The gallery whispered. For years, Daniel had played the charming husband, the man everyone admired. Now, with documents and witnesses stacked against him, his mask was slipping. The final blow came when Mark from accounting testified. He funneled company funds into fake consulting firms. Vanessa deposited the checks. Vanessa's face went crimson. "That's a lie," she hissed. But the paper trail was undeniable. In that moment, the whole room saw them for what they were. Liars, cheats, and partners in crime. When the gavel finally struck, the ruling was clear. The apartment was mine, untouched. The frozen accounts were secured under my name. Daniel faced criminal charges for forgery and fraud. And Vanessa? She was subpoenaed for her role in the scheme. I walked out of the courthouse with Claire at my side. The sun was warm, the air sharp and clean. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a woman standing in someone else's shadow. Felt free. But the story wasn't over. Because Daniel wasn't just losing money or a marriage. He was about to lose everything he thought made him untouchable. And the final move was still mine. The day Daniel was led out of court in handcuffs, I didn't cheer. I didn't cry. I just breathed. For months, I had lived under the weight of his betrayal. His laugh on the phone, his forged papers, his smug face when he thought he had erased me. That weight was gone now. And what filled me instead was something I hadn't felt in years. The apartment that he claimed was sold. Still mine. Every corner of it felt different now. The kitchen wasn't a place of arguments. It was where I brewed coffee for myself each morning without fear. The bedroom wasn't where I cried in silence. It was where I rested without the shadow of betrayal. Vanessa vanished from my life as quickly as she had slithered into it. Whispers said she faced charges too, but I didn't follow. I didn't care anymore. Let her answer for her part. She no longer mattered. Daniel had thought he was clever. That he could strip me of my home, my savings, my dignity. That he could laugh while tossing me aside. But all he really did was reveal who I was when cornered. Not fragile. Not weak. Resilient. Emma, my niece who had always looked up to me, hugged me after the ruling. "Aunt Lucy, you look taller now," she said with a shy smile. I laughed, but inside I knew she was right. Pain can shrink you, but strength makes you stand taller, even when you're standing in the same place. And I stood tall now. So this is my story. If you've ever been made to feel disposable, invisible, powerless, remember me. Remember Lucy, the woman who answered betrayal with calm, who turned heartbreak into evidence, who chose not to be erased. Because strength isn't given, it is chosen. And sometimes the greatest revenge isn't rage or violence. It's standing up, taking back what's yours and walking away free. Thank you for listening. If this story resonated with you, share your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Because stories like mine remind us all that no matter how cruel the betrayal, you always have the power to write your own ending. And this was mine.